The galaxy was still. Space was vast, silent, and endless. But in the far reaches of the universe, something stirred. A human warship, old and forgotten by time, drifted quietly through the void. It was an easy target. The alien fleets, always ready to fight, had no idea what they were about to face. They had seen countless battles and many species. But this was different. The human warship was small compared to the alien Armada. Its design was old-fashioned, built long before humanity had even begun to explore the stars. It looked like a relic from a forgotten age, with its weathered hull and simple weapon systems. The alien fleet, massive and powerful, didn't think much of it. They saw the ship on their sensors and prepared to strike. But something was wrong. As they drew closer, the alien commanders started to feel uneasy. The human warship wasn't responding to their communications. It just sat there, as though unaware of the danger surrounding it. But that was not the case. Inside the ship, the crew was preparing for the battle of their lives. They knew the odds were against them, but they had no choice but to fight. On the bridge, Captain Marlowe stood in silence, watching the alien fleet grow larger on the screens in front of him. His hand gripped the arm of his chair, but his face was calm. There was no fear. His crew, men and women from all walks of life, stood ready. They had trained for this moment, and now it had come. The warship might have been old, but it still had power. Power that the aliens couldn't understand. As the alien fleet moved closer, a strange feeling spread through the ships. Something was off. The usual confidence of the alien commanders began to crack. They couldn't pinpoint it. But they could feel it. The human warship, with its outdated appearance, was somehow different. The tension was palpable. Every alien ship was watching, waiting for something to happen. But the human warship didn't move. It just floated, as if daring them to make the first move. In the control room of the alien command ship, Commander Vrex watched closely. His sharp eyes scanned the data, but his mind couldn't process what was happening. The human ship didn't look like a threat. But every instinct told him it was. He gave the order to advance, and the alien fleet moved in. But something was wrong. The closer they got, the more uneasy the aliens felt. The human warship remained still, a silent presence in the vastness of space. Then, just as the alien ships were about to open fire, the human warship's engines flared to life. It was slow at first, then faster, until the ship was moving at an incredible speed. The aliens were caught off guard. They had expected a fight, but not like this. Before they could react, a massive burst of energy erupted from the human ship. It wasn't just any energy, it was something the aliens had never seen before. It shot out in all directions, sending shockwaves through space. The alien ships, once confident in their superiority, now hesitated. They couldn't understand it. How was this possible? How could a ship so old, so primitive, have this kind of power? For the first time, the aliens were unsure. They had encountered countless species, each more advanced than the last, but none had ever made them feel this way. The human warship, though small and ancient, had shaken the foundations of everything they thought they knew. In that moment, the alien fleet froze. They were no longer sure of themselves. And they knew one thing for certain: humanity, in all its unpredictability, had just proven it was a force to be reckoned with. The galaxy had just witnessed the first glimpse of humanity's power. And it would never be the same again. The alien fleet hung in space, confused, disoriented, and unsure. They had encountered many civilizations before, but none had ever made them feel like this. The human warship, an old and seemingly unremarkable vessel, had just unleashed an energy blast that had sent shockwaves through space. The aliens were not prepared for this. They had assumed that humanity, with its small and primitive ships, would be easy to defeat. But they were wrong. As the alien fleet regrouped, Commander Vrex's mind raced. His sensors, normally able to detect the smallest anomalies, couldn't explain the strange readings coming from the human ship. The warship wasn't just armed with outdated weapons, it was emitting something far more dangerous, something the aliens had never encountered before. It was as if the ship was alive, its energy radiating from within, and yet they couldn't pinpoint its source. The human ship, though small, was no longer the underdog in this battle. Captain Marlowe watched the alien fleet carefully, his fingers running over the controls. His crew, though young and inexperienced, was ready for whatever came next. They had been trained for this. The moment the warship had powered up its mysterious energy, they knew something had changed. There was no turning back now. The crew could feel the difference in the air. The old warship, once a forgotten relic, was now alive with energy. The ship's core, buried deep within its hull, had been designed centuries ago by a group of engineers who had built it for a purpose long since forgotten. But the purpose had now been revealed. The warship was equipped with a technology so advanced that even the aliens could not comprehend it. Hidden deep within its core was a power source, a reactor capable of generating unimaginable energy. But the aliens had no way of knowing this. They couldn't understand how such an ancient ship could possess something so dangerous. On the bridge, Captain Marlowe stood still, watching the alien ships as they tried to regroup. They were hesitant now, unsure of their next move. He knew the warship had just revealed its true power, but that was only the beginning. The aliens might have been powerful, but they had no idea what they were up against. Marlowe turned to his crew. Prepare the next phase. We've only just begun. The crew moved quickly, their motions swift and precise. The warship's hidden weapons systems, once thought to be useless, powered up. The ancient technology, which had been dormant for years, came to life with a violent hum. It was a sound that sent chills down the spine of anyone who heard it. The warship was ready to fight. Outside, the alien fleet had started to take notice. Their ships, once sure of their dominance, were now cautiously circling the human vessel. They knew they had underestimated the humans, but they couldn't admit it. They had never encountered a species like this before. The fear was spreading among the alien commanders. They could sense that the tide of battle was shifting. One by one, the alien ships began to hesitate. They moved closer to the human warship, but each time they got within range, they pulled back, unsure of what would happen next. The alien commanders were in disarray, unable to come to a decision. They couldn't just attack blindly, they needed to figure out what made this human ship so dangerous. But Captain Marlowe was no longer waiting for them to make a move. He gave the order to fire, and the warship unleashed a barrage of energy blasts. The beams shot out with incredible speed, hitting their targets with pinpoint accuracy. The first few alien ships, caught off guard, were obliterated in moments. The crew of the human warship cheered. This was the moment they had been waiting for. The alien fleet, now in chaos, tried to retaliate, but their attacks were weak and ineffective. The human warship had become a force unlike anything they had ever faced. It wasn't just the weapons, it was the power, the raw energy that emanated from the ship itself. It was as if the warship was drawing on the energy of the entire galaxy, and the aliens had no way of stopping it. With each passing second, the alien fleet grew more disoriented. Their once mighty armada was now a group of ships in retreat. The human warship, despite its old design, had proven that it was far more than just a simple vessel. It was a weapon of unimaginable power. As the battle raged on, the alien commanders realized the truth: they had made a grave mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The human warship had revealed its hidden power, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. The battlefield was chaos, a swirling vortex of energy and broken ships. Explosions lit up the void of space, their flashes bright against the blackness of the galaxy. The human warship, once a forgotten relic, was now a symbol of unexpected power, its hidden capabilities revealed in a burst of unimaginable energy. The alien fleet, once confident in its superiority, had been thrown into disarray. The tide of the battle had shifted, and the crew of the human warship was determined to ride that wave of momentum. Captain Marlowe stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the alien fleet that was now desperately trying to regroup. His pulse was steady, his face calm, but inside, a fire burned. He knew this wasn't just a fight for survival, it was a fight for humanity's place in the galaxy. His crew, though inexperienced, had already proven they were capable of incredible things. They had faced the unimaginable and had come out on top. But there was no time for celebration. The battle wasn't over yet. "Focus, everyone," Marlowe said, his voice low but firm. "We've only just begun." The crew moved quickly, their movements sharp and precise. The warship's ancient systems were firing up, the energy blasts from earlier still crackling through the void. But now it was time to press their advantage. The human warship's weapon systems were old, but they were effective. And with the aliens on the defensive, it was the perfect moment to strike. In the lower decks, the crew was preparing the warship's main cannons. Lieutenant Harper, a young officer with a fierce determination, worked at the control panels, her fingers flying over the buttons. "Weapons charged and ready, Captain," she called, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Fire when ready," Marlowe ordered. The first shot rang out, a massive blast of energy that tore through the nearest alien ship. The ship disintegrated in an instant, its remains scattering into space. A cheer erupted from the crew, but there was no time to celebrate. The aliens were quick to retaliate, their ships launching a wave of attacks. The human warship shook under the assault, but its shields held strong. Harper quickly adjusted the targeting system, her eyes narrowing as she lined up her next shot. "Incoming fire, Captain. We're going to have to move fast." Marlowe's voice was calm but urgent. "Brace yourselves. Evade and return fire." The warship jolted as it shifted direction, narrowly avoiding a barrage of alien laser fire. The crew worked in unison, each member knowing their role. The ship's ancient hull groaned under the strain, but it held together. They were more than just a crew, they were a team, fighting not just for their lives but for the future of humanity. Outside, the alien ships were starting to scatter, their once proud formations breaking apart in the face of the human warship's relentless assault. The alien commanders were panicked, unsure of what to do next. This was not how they had planned it. They had expected an easy victory, a simple mission to crush humanity. But instead, they had found themselves fighting for their lives against a force they couldn't understand. In the heart of the battle, Captain Marlowe stood at the helm, watching as his crew turned the tide. Their attacks were precise, each shot landing with deadly accuracy. The alien ships that had once been so confident were now the ones in retreat. The human warship, battered and scarred, had become a symbol of defiance, a ship that refused to be defeated. The battle raged on for what felt like hours, but in the end, the alien fleet began to falter. The retreat became a rout. One by one, the alien ships were destroyed or forced to flee, unable to keep up with the human warship's relentless assault. As the last alien ship disappeared into the void, a deafening silence settled over the battlefield. The crew of the human warship stood in stunned silence, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had done it. Against all odds, they had won. Captain Marlowe allowed himself a brief moment of relief, but he knew this victory was only the beginning. The alien armada had been a threat, but there were other fleets out there, other forces that might one day come for humanity. The battle may have been won, but the war was far from over. "We've made our mark today," Marlowe said, turning to his crew. "But this is just the start. We're going to make sure the galaxy never forgets who we are." The crew nodded, their faces filled with a newfound sense of pride and determination. They had fought together, and they had won. But they also knew that the future was uncertain. The human warship had proven itself a force to be reckoned with, but the true test was yet to come. And they were ready. The galaxy had never seen a sight like this. The once mighty alien armada, which had dominated the stars for eons, was now splintering, retreating in chaos. The human warship, an unassuming relic from another era, had transformed into a harbinger of doom, and the alien fleets, confident, fearless, and seasoned in battle, were now paralyzed in the face of its unexpected power. Commander Vrex, leader of the alien forces, watched helplessly from his command ship. His once steady hands gripped the armrests, his mind racing to make sense of the nightmare unfolding before him. The human warship had shown a resilience, a deadly edge, that no one had anticipated. Each energy blast had hit with pinpoint accuracy, and every counterattack had failed. It wasn't just that the human ship was powerful, it was that its crew had fought with a unity, a ferocity, that seemed born of pure desperation. They had proven themselves against overwhelming odds, and now they were a force no one could ignore. On the alien ships, the atmosphere was thick with confusion and fear. The commanders, each of them seasoned and ruthless, exchanged nervous glances. The humans had done the impossible. The Armada, once the pride of their species, was on the verge of collapse. They had underestimated the humans at every turn, and now, their arrogance had cost them dearly. "We must regroup," Vrex's voice crackled through the comms, but even his words lacked their usual authority. There was no certainty in his tone. The alien fleet, once united in their confidence, was now a collection of ships scattered across the stars, unsure of their next move. A younger commander, one who had been eager for glory, spoke up. "Commander, we cannot just retreat. We have the numbers. We can overwhelm them." Vrex's eyes narrowed as he turned toward the young officer. "Numbers don't matter when the enemy fights like this," he muttered, his voice low with frustration. "You cannot defeat a force that doesn't fear death." Despite his words, Vrex knew the truth. The human warship had inflicted more damage than they could have imagined. The battle had already shifted, and now it was a race to see which side could recover first. On the human warship, Captain Marlowe stood at the helm, watching the alien fleet splinter before him. The once dominant Armada was now fractured and weak. The human crew, though exhausted, was riding high on their victory. But there was no time for complacency. Marlowe knew that this wasn't the end, it was only the beginning. "We need to stay alert," Marlowe said, his voice cutting through the celebration on the bridge. "This battle isn't over. The aliens will regroup, and when they do, they'll come back stronger." Harper, the young officer who had been at the controls during the battle, turned to Marlowe. "Captain, it's unbelievable. They were running from us. I've never seen anything like it. It's like they were afraid." Marlowe nodded, his eyes scanning the enemy fleet, which was now shifting into disarray. The alien ships, once proud and unwavering, were now retreating in groups, unsure of their next move. The power dynamics in the galaxy had shifted in an instant, and humanity had just made its mark. But as Marlowe watched the aliens scatter, a cold realization crept over him. The retreat was not the end of the conflict. It was merely a pause. The alien Armada would not just disappear. They would regroup, strategize, and return with a vengeance. The next battle would be harder. The human warship, though powerful, was damaged. Its systems were strained from the battle, and the crew was weary. There was no telling how much time they had before the aliens returned in full force. Vrex, too, was preparing for the next phase of the conflict. He would not allow this defeat to stand. His fleet, though fractured, still had the firepower to crush the humans. And he knew that the galaxy would not forget this day. The humans had shown themselves to be a formidable adversary, but Vrex was determined to break them. He would not allow his species to be brought low by these upstarts. The alien fleet, though in retreat, was not defeated. It would regroup, rebuild, and strike again. And this time, the humans would not be so lucky. As the human warship floated in the silence of space, its crew knew that they had won a great victory, but it was a victory that would come at a cost. The aliens would not rest. And neither would humanity. The fight for the future of the galaxy had only just begun. The war was far from over. But for the first time in history, humanity had shown the galaxy that it was not to be underestimated. The aftermath of the battle rippled through the galaxy like a shockwave. The alien fleets, once unstoppable, were now broken, retreating into the dark corners of the cosmos. The human warship, a vessel thought to be outdated and inferior, had proven itself to be a force of incredible power. Its victory had shaken the foundation of the galactic order. Across countless star systems, messages of the battle spread like wildfire. News of the humans' unexpected triumph reached the ears of every civilization, from the most primitive to the most advanced. The galaxy was watching. And humanity had just shown it was no longer the underdog. Captain Marlowe stood on the bridge of the warship, looking out into the endless expanse of space. The stars twinkled calmly, their light unchanged by the chaos that had just unfolded. Yet, he knew that everything had changed. The warship, despite its age and wear, had become a symbol of humanity's resilience. The once dismissed species had proven its worth, and the galaxy would never forget the first time they saw a human warship in action. It wasn't just about the battle, it was about what it represented. "We've done it," Harper said quietly from behind him, her voice full of awe. "We've beaten them." Marlowe didn't answer immediately. He could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. He had expected the victory, but he hadn't expected the shock it had caused. The alien fleets, once proud and unyielding, had scattered before them. The galaxy's view of humanity had shifted in an instant, and with that shift came new possibilities, and new dangers. The communications officer, Lieutenant Torres, spoke up from her station. "Captain, we're receiving messages from several nearby systems. They've heard about the battle. They want to know what's next." Marlowe nodded. "Put them through. Let's see who's interested in joining the conversation." The screen flickered to life, and the faces of various leaders from different parts of the galaxy appeared. Some looked curious, others wary. A few even appeared intimidated. Humanity's victory had sparked interest, but not all of it was friendly. One of the leaders, a tall alien with dark, metallic skin and glowing eyes, spoke first. "Humanity," he said, his voice cold, "you have done what many thought impossible. You have defeated the most powerful force in the galaxy. But do not think for a moment that you are safe. The alien Armada will return, and you will not be so lucky next time." Marlowe met his gaze without flinching. "We're ready. And we're not afraid of what's to come." The leader's expression tightened, but he said no more. The message was clear, they were watching, waiting to see how humanity would handle its newfound place in the galaxy. Marlowe knew that this was only the beginning. The aliens wouldn't just fade away. They would regroup, rebuild, and come back stronger. But humanity had already shown that it wasn't afraid to fight. And now, it would fight on its terms. As the communication ended, another transmission came through. This time, it was from a smaller, peaceful species who had watched the battle from a distance. Their leader, a soft-spoken creature with a translucent, shimmering body, appeared on the screen. "Humanity," she said, her voice gentle but filled with respect, "we've watched you for a long time, and we know you are not just survivors. You are warriors. What you did today is something no one expected. The galaxy will change because of this. And we stand with you." Her words hung in the air, a reminder that while the galaxy had witnessed humanity's strength, it had also witnessed its potential for alliances. The future wasn't just about war, it was about who would join humanity in its rise, and who would seek to stand in its way. As Marlowe sat back in his chair, the weight of the galaxy's eyes upon him, he realized that the true test had only just begun. The aliens, though defeated, would return with vengeance. The galaxy's attention had shifted to humanity, but it wouldn't remain passive forever. Some would seek to conquer, others to ally. And it was up to humanity to decide its path forward. "Captain," Lieutenant Harper said, her voice breaking through his thoughts. There's another message coming in. It's from the Terran Federation. Marlowe's eyes flickered. The Federation had been silent since the battle began, and their response would be crucial. They were a powerful force, but also a political one, and their stance on the warship's victory could determine the future of humanity's role in the galaxy. The screen lit up once more, this time with the face of the Federation's leader, President Naomi West. Her expression was stern, but there was a glint of admiration in her eyes. Captain Marlowe, she began, the Terran Federation congratulates you on your victory. But I must remind you, we are not alone in this galaxy. You've made a powerful enemy today. And while you may have won the battle, you must be ready for the war that's coming. Marlowe nodded, understanding the gravity of her words. We're ready, he said simply. Humanity's time has come. And with that, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had struck back, and it was no longer just a species fighting for survival. It was a force to be reckoned with. The road ahead would be perilous, but for the first time, humanity stood at the forefront of the galactic stage, ready to face whatever came next.